I haven't spoken much about dividends in a long time, but today I'll be revealing what I think is the best dividend ETF in 2021. But that's not all, because I'll actually be showing you 3 of my top picks for dividend ETFs, and then of course I'll explain which one I think is best. But remember, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm just a random dude in a donut t-shirt, so please do your own research before investing your capital. So I'm just going to quickly go through what is a dividend ETF and why I like dividend ETFs. But if you want to skip through to the actual ETFs, then I'll leave timestamps in the description so you don't have to listen to this bit. So what is a dividend ETF? They actually pay... That's better. So what is a dividend ETF? Well, they're also known as income ETFs, and they actually pay out dividends as cash to the holders of the ETF. They differ slightly from the accumulating ETFs, where the dividends are actually reinvested, but in this case, they're actually given out to the holder. So you can choose what you want to do, reinvest or reinvest somewhere else, or have a nice lunch. Don't do that. Always reinvest your dividends.
Great success.
So why do I like dividend ETFs? Well, first of all, cash is king. This cash can be deployed into other investments, like I said. So you could put it into a house, you could put it into another stock that is fallen in price for no odd reason, or whatever. It just gives you options to reinvest your money. And the next reason is lower risk. But this does actually mean lower rewards, but it obviously depends on your risk tolerance. Dividend ETFs tend to be safer than investing into dividend stocks because they cover a broad range of dividend stocks. So say, for example, one of these companies decides to cut their dividend, it doesn't affect the ETF, but if you were invested individually into that company, then obviously it would affect your income. And this can happen at any time because dividends are not owed to you, they are at the discretion of the company, so you just have to be careful with that. And the next reason I like dividend ETFs is it actually saves so much time and saves headaches when trying to invest. It's a very nonchalant approach, it's passive, you just invest every single month and you let it do its thing. You don't have to look at individual companies' reports, you don't have to look at their annual reports, you don't have to go out to meetings, blah blah blah. You just put it in here and you walk away. And of course, live your life like you should, not living in the spreadsheet, not living in your investment app, not checking it every single day. You get the picture. And the next reason I like dividend ETFs is that purchasing shares in dividend ETFs is instant diversification, which is always good. It allows you to spread your risk and means that you're not exposed to one particular market, one particular company or sector. And to be honest, it just means you'll sleep better at night. So now we've got these out the way, let's jump into the actual ETFs. So these are all available on Trading 212. I haven't checked free trade and I haven't checked stake, but they are most likely going to be on there too. So if you want to invest in them, then that's where they'll be. And therefore it should be quite easy for you to do your research when you want to invest in them or not. So let's start with the biggest global dividend ETF with a ticker symbol VHYL, or by the full name, the Vanguard FTSE All World High Div Yield UCITS. Wow, that's a mouthful. That's what she said. So today I've actually added this ETF to my Pi Felicia Pi, which will be linked in the description, and I really like it for these 3 reasons. First off, decent returns. So after expenses, it's actually returned 6.14%, which is naughty for a dividend ETF, and that's since the inception of that fund, so we're doing well. The reason I think it's a good return is because dividend stocks tend to have a lower return overall because they tend to be more stable and they're not like growing like mad like some of these tech companies are. So these dividend ETFs and dividend stocks tend to have lower returns compared to these type of companies. However, 6% after expenses is still pretty good. And the second reason is a dividend yield of 3.2%, which is really, really decent. Nothing to be telling the world about like SafeMoon and Dogecoin and all that stuff, but it's a decent return. And the third point is actually the biggest global dividend ETF. This is a huge factor in risk reduction, and I'm all about that. I don't want to be losing my money, I want to be making it grow. The more I lose money, the worse I feel. I don't know where I was going with that. The reason this is a risk reduction is because usually the bigger something is, the bigger a fund, the safer it is. It's not always the case, but for this one, I do believe that is helpful and is actually a good thing. However, according to this kid, I mean the key investor information document, this dividend ETF actually has a risk rating of 5 out of 7. So that's actually fairly high in the scheme of things. However, I don't really know what would be classified as 1, keeping it in the savings account maybe. I don't really know. So that is one thing to be wary of. It's not a risk-free investment. Your capital can go down. So on to the next one, and it's a bit of a tongue twister, so I'm going to read it off because otherwise I'm just going to mess it up. The SPDR S&P UK Dividend Aristocrats ETF, ticker symbol UKDV. So this one doesn't have the return like the previous one at 4.85% since inception, including dividend reinvestment. So it's alright, it's not nothing special. But for me, the main thing I like about this is the diversification. I currently have around half of my money in an S&P 500 ETF. So that is a lot of exposure to the US market. So by choosing this dividend ETF, it gives me exposure to the dividend market in the UK. And when investing, you should obviously support your own country. So it's coming home, boys. Let's go. But for me, this gives me protection because let's say the US have another dodgy president like Donald Trump and the markets just go... At least, hopefully, the UK will have a decent Prime Minister, maybe. But hopefully this ETF will help me make up the losses from the US if that does happen, or something major happens and the markets crash over there. And the reason for the low returns is just purely because there's not as many companies in the UK as big as there are in the US, and not as many that pay dividends. So that is why the return is a bit lower, but I will take the risk. And talking of risk, this is actually a higher risk dividend ETF compared to the previous one, but that's just purely because we're concentrated in the UK. So there's the difference basically. But we mustn't forget about the dividend yield, which is actually 2.76%, which is not bad, it's not amazing, but we'll take it. So on to the next one, and this is another one that I'm just going to have to read. Apologies. The Wisdom Tree Global Quality Dividend Growth UCITS ETF USD. Ticker GGRG. So this one is a bit of a curveball, so it's going to be... And the reason for that is it doesn't actually pay a dividend. So you might be thinking, oh my god, a dividend ETF that doesn't pay a dividend. Well, yeah, but also no. They don't actually pay the dividend directly to you, it's automatically reinvested. And it's reinvested into dividend growth companies. And the power of dividend growth investing is crazy. They call it the snowball effect, and there's a great video by Dividend Data, which I'll link in the description, and you should all go watch because it's quality. But anyway, all of this dividend growth of reinvestment contributes to a massive 14.7 annual growth rate, which is crazy. That is beating the S&P 500 by a mile and beating most investment banks. But bear in mind, this is a fairly new fund, so it hasn't been even around for 5 years. It hasn't got as many data points as, let's say, the S&P 500, where it's consistently made 7-8% for the last 100 years or so. So yeah, that has been 3 quality dividend ETFs, but which do I think is the best? Well, I'm going to have to go back to the start and go with the VHYL, which is the Vanguard All World. And this is for 2 reasons. It has a very decent yield, and it's actually very diversified. And for me, I'm liking that. I'm trying to reduce my risk. At the moment, I'm very concentrated, as said, in the S&P 500, in the US stocks. So I want to try and diversify that a little bit, just so that I can keep my money safe, basically. And that will just make me sleep even better at night, knowing that I'm nice and safe, my money is growing nice and slow and consistently over a long period of time. But that is just one man's opinion, sitting on his bed in a donut t-shirt. So what do you think? Anyway, that's enough blabber from me. Hope you've enjoyed this video and you've got some value out of it. And as a reward for getting this far, there are some free share links down in the description which help you, and they also help me, so if you'd be so kind. We've got free trade, we've got stake, and we've got CoinBase, because Bitcoin is booming at the moment. Might as well get in. Up to you, but I'm not a millionaire and I'm trying to help you become one. So peace. I haven't spoken much about dividends for a long time, but in today's video I will be going through